My name is Alex, and up until about 6 months ago, I was just another guy grinding away in the tech world, chasing a dream that mostly involved lines of code and lukewarm coffee. Then, a project I'd poured my soul into for 3 years finally hit the big time. Suddenly, ramen noodle budget Alex can actually afford the good sushi Alex. And with that came the decision to treat myself to something I'd fantasized about since I was a kid, plastering posters on my bedroom wall, a Mclaren. Not just any Mclaren, but a vibrant orange 720S, a sleek, snarling beast of engineering perfection. It was, to me, more than a car. It was a trophy, a testament to late nights and relentless debugging, a bright orange beacon of achievement. Alongside this mechanical marvel, I bought a house. I wasn't looking for a sprawling mansion, just a quiet place in a reputable neighborhood, somewhere I could finally exhale and enjoy the fruits of my labor. I found a lovely 2-story home in a community called Willow Creek Estates, which sounded peaceful, didn't it? Mature trees, manicured lawns, the promise of quiet evenings on the patio. It was an HOA community, and while I'd heard the usual horror stories, the rules seemed reasonable on paper, mostly about lawn care and not painting your house purple. I figured, I'm a quiet guy, I keep to myself, my lawn will be immaculate, what could go wrong? Oh, the naivety. If you've ever dealt with a neighborhood tyrant, maybe drop a comment below and tell me your tale, because I'm pretty sure we could fill a library. Where are you watching this from, by the way? I'm curious how far these HOA sagas spread. The first few weeks were blissful. The Mclaren, which I'll call Phoenix for its fiery color and the way it made my spirits rise, was mostly a weekend warrior. I had a sensible daily driver for errands. Phoenix lived in my pristine, triple-locked garage, emerging only for those soul-cleansing drives on open roads or the occasional admiring glance from a fellow car enthusiast at a local meetup. I was living the dream, successful career, beautiful car, peaceful home. Also, I thought. The serpent in my suburban Eden was about to make her grand entrance, and her name, as I would soon learn with a shudder, was Brenda. Brenda was the HOA president of Willow Creek Estates. I first encountered her about a month after moving in. I was meticulously trimming the edges of my lawn, yes, with those special scissors, because the HOA handbook had a diagram when a shadow fell over me. I looked up to see a woman whose posture was so ramrod straight I suspected a broomstick might be involved. She had a helmet of sprayed blonde hair that looked like it could deflect small arms fire, and eyes that scanned my property with the critical intensity of a health inspector at a rat-infested diner. "Good morning," I offered, trying for friendly. "Mr. Alex Thompson, I presume," she stated, not asked. Her voice was surprisingly high-pitched but carried an unnerving authority, like a chihuahua that genuinely believed it was a Rottweiler. "Just Alex is fine," I replied, wiping a bead of sweat from my forehead. "I am Brenda Miller, president of the Homeowners Association," she announced, as if expecting a curtsy. "I trust you've received and thoroughly reviewed the Willow Creek covenants, conditions, and restrictions." "Yes, I have," I said. A bit of light reading before bed each night, a small attempt at humor that, predictably, flew right over her lacquered hairdo. "Good," she sniffed. "We pride ourselves on maintaining a certain standard here in Willow Creek. A harmonious living environment for everyone." Her eyes flicked towards my closed garage. "And that includes appropriate vehicle conduct." "Appropriate vehicle conduct?" I echoed, genuinely puzzled. My daily driver was a modest sedan. Phoenix was tucked away. "Yes," she said, her lips thinning. "We've had comments about a rather ostentatious vehicle seen entering your garage on occasion. A very bright orange sports car." My internal alarm bells, usually reserved for critical code failures, started a low hum. "That would be my Mclaren," I said, keeping my tone even. "It's a classic sports car, and it's fully street legal and insured." Brenda said, the sound dripping with disapproval. "Willow Creek is a family neighborhood, Mr. Thompson. We don't want to attract undesirable attention or encourage reckless behavior. The speed limit, as you know, is 25 miles per hour. Strictly enforced. I'm well aware of the speed limit, Brenda, I said, a little more firmly this time. And I assure you, I drive it responsibly. It's mostly for weekend enjoyment on appropriate roads, not for tearing through the neighborhood. She gave a curt nod. See that you do. The trash receptacles, for instance. They must be retrieved from the curb by 6 p.m. on collection day. Yours were still out at 6:17 p.m. last Tuesday. I have photographic evidence. I blinked. 17 minutes? My apologies, I said, though I felt a surge of annoyance. I was on a late work call. It won't happen again. Ensure it doesn't, she said, then turned on her heel and marched off, her mission of micromanaging clearly accomplished for the moment. I watched her go, a knot forming in my stomach. This, I suspected, was not going to be the last I heard from Brenda Miller. My desire for peace suddenly felt a little more precarious. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in petty tyranny. First, it was a notice about my grass being a quarter-inch too high on the north side of the driveway. Then, a warning because the decorative rocks I'd placed around a flowerbed were apparently non-conforming to the pre-approved landscaping palette. I changed the rocks. I bought a specialized ruler for the grass. Each interaction with Brenda, or rather, each crisply printed violation notice slipped under my door, left me feeling more like an inmate than a homeowner. The topic of Phoenix, my Mclaren, kept resurfacing. Brenda couldn't seem to let it go. She'd make comments if she saw me washing it in my driveway, such a flashy display, Mr. Thompson. Are you trying to make your neighbors feel inadequate? Or she'd corner me if I was pulling it out of the garage for a weekend drive. Remember, school zones are active even on Saturdays. Children could be present as if I were some kind of street racing maniac. The irony was, I was probably the most cautious driver in the entire neighborhood when Phoenix was out, hyper-aware of its power and the attention it drew. I tried reasoning with her. At one HOA meeting, which I attended out of a grim sense of self-preservation, I politely asked for clarification on the vehicle policy, pointing out that my car met all legal requirements and was maintained impeccably. It's not about legality, Mr. Thompson, Brenda had said, addressing the room as if I were a particularly slow child. It's about community standards. About fitting in. That e-vehicle is a disruption. A few of the older residents nodded sagely, while others just looked uncomfortable. I noticed a younger couple, the Harrisons, exchange a sympathetic glance with me. They'd received a violation for having a small, inflatable kiddie pool in their backyard that was, apparently, visible from a certain angle on the street for 2 hours. My attempts to comply meticulously were met with more inventive complaints. If I parked my daily driver perfectly centered in my driveway, I'd get a note about potential oil drips on common property if it was too close to the sidewalk, even though my car didn't leak a drop. I started to document everything, her comments, the violations, my responses. I even installed a couple of extra security cameras around my property, discreet ones, after noticing Brenda lingering near my property line a little too often. My background in software, particularly in AI-driven security systems, meant I knew how to set up comprehensive coverage. It was a precaution born out of a growing unease. I was a software engineer, not a litigator, but I believed in data. And the data was showing a clear pattern of harassment. One of my neighbors, old Mr. Henderson, a retired history teacher with a twinkle in his eye, stopped me one afternoon while I was, once again, measuring my grass. "Don't let her get to you, son," he'd said quietly, nodding towards Brenda's house. "She's been on a power trip since her husband left her and they made her president because nobody else wanted the job. Thinks she's Queen Elizabeth of Willow Creek. Most of us just try to stay off her radar. It's hard when your radar seems to be permanently locked on me and my car," I muttered. "That car of yours," he chuckled. "It's a beauty. But to Brenda, it's probably like waving a red flag at a very angry, very blonde bull." His words, though humorous, didn't entirely soothe the simmering frustration. I wasn't looking for trouble. I just wanted to enjoy my home, my car, the life I'd worked hard to build. But Brenda seemed determined to make that impossible. The escalation was steady, a slow tightening of a vice. I found myself tensing up whenever I saw her patrol car, her beige sedan, cruising slowly down the street. The peace I'd sought in Willow Creek was being systematically dismantled, one petty violation, one passive-aggressive comment at a time. I started to feel like the Mclaren, Phoenix, was a prisoner in its own garage, and I, its warden, was also under siege. The thought crossed my mind more than once: was this woman deliberately trying to drive me out? Or was she just that consumed by her petty kingdom? The critical incident, the line that wasn't just crossed but obliterated with a vengeance, happened on a sunny Saturday afternoon. I decided to take Phoenix for a proper drive, a therapeutic escape up the coast. I'd spent the morning detailing it, every inch gleaming, the vibrant orange paint practically incandescent in the sunlight. It was more than just a car, it was my therapy, my joy. As I was about to back it out of the garage, my phone rang. It was my sister, a rare call, and she sounded distressed about a family matter. I stepped back into the house, leaving the garage door open and Phoenix purring softly on the driveway, just for a few minutes. I figured it was safe. It was broad daylight, my quiet street. How wrong I was. The call took about 10 minutes. When I walked back towards the garage, my heart pounding from the conversation with my sister, the first thing I noticed was a glint of something sharp on the ground near Phoenix's front fender. Then I saw it. A deep, vicious scratch, starting from the headlight, gouging its way across the carbon fiber fender, across the door, and ending halfway down the rear quarter panel. It wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, a jagged wound carved into the flawless skin of my car. My breath hitched. My blood ran cold, then boiling hot in a sickening wave. I circled the car, a roaring in my ears. It wasn't just one scratch. There were more. Another one on the hood, a crude, hateful zigzag. And then, the passenger side headlight. It was shattered, a spiderweb of cracks radiating from a clear impact point. It looked like someone had taken a hammer to it. A hammer. To my Mclaren. My security system, an advanced setup I designed myself, had, of course, been active. My watch buzzed with alerts I'd been too distracted by my sister's call to notice immediately. With trembling hands, I pulled up the footage on my phone. The quality was crystal clear, 4K, multiple angles. And there she was. Brenda Miller. The video showed her walking briskly down the sidewalk, then stopping abruptly as she saw Phoenix unattended. Her eyes, even on the small screen, glinted with something ugly. She looked around, furtively, then pulled something metallic, a large key, or maybe a screwdriver, from her pocket. She approached the car, her movements quick and hateful, and began her vicious assault. The sound of the metal tearing into the paint was sickeningly clear through the microphone. Then, she disappeared from view for a moment, and reappeared with a small claw hammer, a hammer she must have been carrying in that oversized purse of hers. She swung it, once, twice, with vicious force, directly into the headlight. Then, she tossed the hammer into a nearby bush in her own yard, gave a satisfied little smirk, and walked away as if she'd just finished weeding a flower bed. I stood there, phone in hand, watching the replay, a cold, hard rage solidifying in my chest. This wasn't about grass height or trash cans anymore. This wasn't about community standards, this was malicious destruction of property. This was a personal attack. This was pure, unadulterated venom. The line had been crossed. My desire for peace was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. She had wanted to hurt me, to break something I loved. And she had succeeded. But as I looked at the mangled beauty of Phoenix, a different thought began to form: Brenda Miller was going to regret this. Not next week, not tomorrow. Instantly. My mind, usually occupied with algorithms and data structures, kicked into high gear, focusing with an intensity one normally reserved for critical system failures. This was a critical system failure, a failure of civility, of respect, of basic human decency. And I, Alex Thompson, the quiet software guy, was about to deploy a patch. A very, very aggressive patch. The first thing I did was download all the footage from multiple angles to a secure cloud server and my local hard drive. The audio was pristine. You could hear her muttering under her breath as she did the damage, things like flashy piece of junk and teach him a lesson. Evidence irrefutable. Next, I called my lawyer, Sarah Chen. I'd put her on a modest retainer after the first few HOA love letters, just in case. She was sharp, no nonsense, and specialized in property disputes and, as she cheerfully put it, dealing with nut jobs. Sarah, I said, my voice tight but controlled. Code red. We have a Brenda situation. Major escalation. What did she do now, Alex? Sarah asked, her voice instantly alert. Try to tow the Mclaren for being too orange. Worse, I said. She vandalized it. Badly. I have clear video footage of the entire act. Hammer, keys, the works. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Are you serious? The Mclaren. Deadly serious. Passenger headlight smashed, deep scratches down the entire side and hood. It's extensive. Okay, Sarah said, her tone shifting to pure professional. Send me that footage immediately. What's the estimated damage? Headlight alone is probably 10 grand. Paint and body work on carbon fiber. I'm guessing 60, 70,000, maybe more. It's a Mclaren, Sarah, not a Honda. Right. Okay. This is felony vandalism. Do not confront her. Do not touch anything. The police are your first call after me. I want a report filed immediately. I'll start drafting the civil suit and a cease and desist. That'll make her hair curl, if that's even possible under all that lacquer. Already on it, I said, my finger hovering over the 911 call button on my phone's second line. But Sarah, I want more than just a lawsuit down the line. She needs to understand the gravity of her actions now. What do you have in mind, Alex? She asked, a hint of intrigue in her voice. My car has a feature I added, I explained quickly. An external localized alarm system with a voice announcement. I can trigger it remotely. It'll announce that vandalism has occurred, that the perpetrator has been recorded, and that police have been notified. It's loud. Very loud. Sarah was silent for a beat, then chuckled. Oh, I like that. Public humiliation coupled with an undeniable "you are so busted" a moment. What else? I also have documented every interaction, every false violation, every veiled threat from her. I've even done a little digging. Remember how Mr. Henderson said her husband left her? Turns out it was messy and there were allegations of her misusing joint funds. And there are whispers, very quiet whispers from a couple of ex-board members, about irregularities in the HOA's financials under her presidency. Nothing concrete enough to act on before, but with this blatant criminality, it might be time to pull on those threads, very publicly. Alex, Sarah said, admiration in her voice. You're a man of hidden talents. Okay, here's the plan. Call 911. Report the vandalism. When they are en route, and only then, trigger your car's announcement. I want her to know the cavalry is literally coming. I'll get that footage to a process server who can serve her with an emergency injunction for harassment and destruction of property the moment the police are done with her. We'll also send a copy of the footage and a formal demand for her immediate resignation to every single member of the HOA board, and if necessary, to every homeowner. We'll make her infamous in Willow Creek before sundown. That's what I'm talking about, I said, a grim satisfaction starting to cut through the rage. Instant regret. I ended the call with Sarah and immediately dialed 911. I calmly explained the situation, the make and value of the car, the fact that I had clear video evidence of the perpetrator, who was my neighbor and the HOA president. The dispatcher, to their credit, took it very seriously. Officers are being dispatched immediately, sir. Please remain in your home and do not engage with the suspect. Understood, I said. Then, I took a deep breath. Show time. I stepped out onto my porch, tablet in hand, displaying the video footage. Brenda was in her front yard, ostentatiously deadheading roses, occasionally glancing towards my driveway with a smug, self-satisfied look on her face. She hadn't a clue. I waited until I heard the distant but distinct sound of sirens. Then, I tapped the icon on my tablet. Suddenly, Phoenix, my beautiful, wounded Phoenix, roared to life. Not its engine, but its voice. A piercing, multi-tone alarm split the quiet afternoon air, followed by a calm, synthesized female voice, loud enough for the entire street to hear. Warning. Vandalism detected. Perpetrator identified as Brenda Miller, resident of 124, Willow Lane. High-definition video and audio recording of the crime is secured. Law enforcement has been notified and is en route. Brenda Miller, you are advised to remain on your property until they arrive. Brenda froze, rose clippers clattering to the ground. Her head snapped towards my Mclaren, then towards me. The smugness on her face dissolved into disbelief, then horror, then a sickly pale green as the sirens grew undeniably closer. Her eyes darted around like a trapped animal. Several neighbors, drawn by the commotion and the unique announcement, were emerging from their homes, looking bewildered. I just stood there on my porch, silent, holding the tablet up so the screen, replaying the loop of her smashing the headlight, was visible to anyone who cared to look. Mr. Henderson was on his porch, a slow grin spreading across his face. The Harrisons, the young couple with the kiddie pool infraction, were staring, mouths agape. Brenda started to sputter. That's a lie. That's manipulated. I didn't. But the car repeated its message, calmly, clearly, warning. Vandalism detected. Perpetrator identified as Brenda Miller. Just then, 2 police cruisers, lights flashing, pulled up sharply in front of my house, effectively blocking Brenda's driveway as well. 2 officers got out, their expression serious. "Sir, are you Alex Thompson?" one of them asked me. "Yes, officer," I replied. "Thank you for the quick response. The individual who vandalized my vehicle is Brenda Miller," right there I pointed. Brenda looked like she was about to faint. Her meticulously sprayed hair seemed to wilt. "This is harassment," she shrieked, finding her voice, though it was several octaves higher than usual. "He's doing this to me. He's the one causing trouble in this neighborhood with that obscene car." "We've received a report of felony vandalism," the officer said, his voice firm. "Mr. Thompson states he has video evidence." "It's fake. It's all fake." Brenda wailed, but there was no conviction in it. Just pure, unadulterated panic. The instant regret was hitting her full force. I could see it in her wide, terrified eyes. The carefully constructed facade of the HOA president, the queen of her petty kingdom, was shattering like cheap glass. I calmly handed the tablet to the second officer. "Here's the raw footage, officer. Multiple angles, time-stamped, with audio. You can see her retrieve the hammer from the bush next to her porch right after." The officer watched the footage for a minute, his eyebrows climbing higher and higher. He then looked over at his partner and gave a subtle nod. The first officer approached Brenda. "Based on the evidence provided and the extent of the damage to a high-value vehicle, I'm placing you under arrest for felony criminal mischief and vandalism." Brenda's reaction was explosive. She started screaming, a torrent of denials, accusations, and incoherent babbling. "You can't do this to me. I am the HOA president. I have rights. This is a conspiracy. He's trying to destroy me." She even tried to make a run for her front door, but the officer was quicker, gently but firmly taking her arm. "You need to calm down," he said, as he expertly cuffed her. The metallic click of the handcuff seemed to echo in the sudden silence that fell over the street, broken only by Brenda's increasingly desperate sobs. Neighbors were now openly gathered on their lawns, watching the downfall of their local tyrant. Mr. Henderson gave me a discreet thumbs up. The Harrisons looked like they wanted to cheer. The officer read Brenda her Miranda rights, each word a nail in the coffin of her reign. As they led her, weeping and stumbling, to one of the patrol cars, a sleek black town car pulled up. A man in a sharp suit got out, holding a sheaf of papers. "Brenda Miller?" he asked, his voice impassive. Brenda, mascara streaking down her face, just stared at him blankly from the back of the police car. "You've been served," the man said, tucking a document into the hands of a bewildered officer who then passed it to her. Emergency injunction for harassment, restraining order, a notice of intent to sue for full restitution and punitive damages on behalf of Mr. Alex Thompson. "And this," he added, holding up another envelope, "is a copy of the evidence and a formal demand for your immediate resignation, which is being delivered to every member of the Willow Creek Estates HOA board as we speak." The wail that erupted from Brenda then was something truly primal. It was the sound of a petty dictator realizing her reign was not just over, but that she was about to pay, dearly, for her abuses of power. The police car drove away, taking a blubbering Brenda with it. The process server gave me a nod and left. Silence descended, a stunned, yet somehow lighter, silence. The instant regret phase was complete. The long-term consequences were just beginning for her. The immediate aftermath was, to put it mildly, chaotic for Brenda and deeply satisfying for many in Willow Creek. The HOA board, several of whom had clearly been chafing under Brenda's rule but were too timid to act, received the video footage and Sarah's strongly worded letter that same afternoon. An emergency board meeting was called for that very evening, via Zoom, given the circumstances. I was invited to attend and present my side, though the video had pretty much spoken for itself. Brenda, having been booked and then bailed out by a reluctant-looking cousin, attended the Zoom meeting from what looked like a very messy living room, her usually immaculate hair deflated, her face blotchy from crying. She tried to defend herself, claiming stress, claiming I was provoking her, claiming the video was misleading. But the footage was undeniable. The sheer malice in her actions, the use of a hammer, it was too much for even her most timid supporters on the board to overlook. The vote for her immediate removal as president and as a board member was unanimous. Her access to HOA funds, her power to issue violations, her reign of terror, all gone in the space of a few hours. Legally, things moved swiftly too. Faced with irrefutable video evidence and the prospect of a very expensive civil trial she couldn't possibly win, Brenda's lawyer advised her to settle. The criminal charges were separate, of course, and she eventually pleaded guilty to a lesser felony charge to avoid jail time, receiving a hefty fine, probation, and mandatory anger management classes. The civil settlement covered the full cost of repairing Phoenix, which, as I'd estimated, was just shy of $75,000 for specialized Mclaren bodywork and a new headlight assembly. It also included a significant sum for punitive damages and emotional distress, every penny of which I immediately donated to a local charity that helped victims of bullying. That felt right. Phoenix was meticulously restored by certified Mclaren technicians. It took a few weeks, but when I finally got it back, it was as perfect as the day I first bought it. Driving it out of the dealership, the engine note a symphony of precision engineering, felt like a true liberation. It wasn't just a car anymore, it was a symbol of standing up to petty tyranny, of refusing to be cowed. The atmosphere in Willow Creek Estates changed almost overnight. It was like a cloud had lifted. People started smiling more, talking to each other. The Harrisons put up their kiddie pool without fear. Mr. Henderson told me he was finally going to plant the non-regulation color roses his late wife had always loved. The HOA, under new, more sensible leadership, the timid treasurer, a quiet accountant named David, surprisingly stepped up and proved to be fair and reasonable, even began a review of all the outdated and ridiculous bylaws Brenda had so zealously enforced. Many were simply scrapped. Brenda, stripped of her power and facing social ostracization, put her house up for sale within a month. I heard she moved to another state. Good riddance. Sometimes, I'd see neighbors look at Phoenix with a newfound respect, not just for the car, but for what it represented in our little community, the catalyst that brought down a bully. Looking back, I never asked for that fight. I just wanted to enjoy my success, my home, my ridiculous orange car. But when someone tries to maliciously destroy something you love, tries to intimidate you into submission through petty abuses of power, you have a choice. You can roll over, or you can fight back. I chose to fight back, using the tools I had: technology, evidence, and a very good lawyer. And in Brenda's case, her own actions, her own vindictiveness, became her undoing. The instant regret I'd planned for her was just the beginning of a much larger and entirely self-inflicted downfall. The peace I initially sought in Willow Creek eventually found me, albeit after a rather dramatic detour. Phoenix still gleams in my garage, a reminder that sometimes standing up for yourself, even against the neighborhood, Karen, is not just necessary, it's incredibly satisfying. And you know what? My lawn is still immaculate, but now it's because I like it that way, not because I'm afraid of a violation notice. That, my friends, is true suburban freedom. What's the craziest rule your HOA has? I'd genuinely love to hear it. This is Alex Thompson, the guy whose Mclaren taught an HOA president a very expensive, very public lesson, signing off.